a lot of dads won't let their sons lead them down different roads. You really have to have a really good dynamic, and you have to not let your ego get in the way of you guys sticking to your strength.
What is your key issue that you want to solve that smoothes everything, and where you say, okay, then we can onboard 100 months and not a year?
I actually get asked that question all the time. Right now, I think it's all about
drawing back to kind of the connections to also our family, my family business back here. We have a plumbing service, and it's now a bad German translation, but it's basically the pipe fairy. And that is kind of a pink lady on a truck, which is to your one Tom-Plumber. That is one connection that pops up in my mind constantly while talking to you. So I really understand that dispatching of those different elements and companies, because this is basically what we do in our repair and maintenance and restoration business, with the adjacent kind of plumbing service as well. Cool. Wow. So
Can I make a point, actually, to your earlier point? I love to sell. I'll keep selling. Cameron's job is compliance. But that's the point of it. A lot of dads won't let their sons lead them down different roads. And then other times, Cameron gets a little too deep into the compliance thing, and he lets me do what I do. So you really have to have a good intake, kind of like you and your dad. That's Cameron's part. So I have to step back, and that's his decision to make when I've gone too far. So you really have to have a really good dynamic, and you have to not let your ego get in the way of you guys sticking to your strengths. And then sometimes it goes the other way, and we're a team, and truly, and that's the way we look at it. And then look, one of the things I can give any parent, because I know women that own businesses and work with their daughters or their sons too, but is that we meet once a week and talk about what do you call it, Cameron? Our get on the same page.
the same page meeting.
Yeah. So, and we do it off-site. We actually do it at Cameron's house, and then we come back to work. So, because we don't want the interruptions and stuff like that. And anything worth having is worth working on. So we'll literally leave as long as we're both in town. We leave. We go work on the dynamic, and we always say we talk about the hard things then. Okay, and then once we leave, we're on the same page, whether we agree or don't disagree with each other. We let that person make a decision because that's their wheelhouse. That's their swim lane. And once we walk out of that, it's the best idea ever. Even if I don't agree with what he's going to do, I still, as far as everybody else in the world is concerned, that's the best idea ever. But we're both really good. And I think any business person needs to do this, to where if you want to try something, if you think it's a good idea, but you realize quickly it's not, we're really both really good about not worrying about the other one going, see, I told you so. We literally say, boy, that was dumb. What the heck was I thinking? Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And that's the thing, is you start getting into I told you so's, or you should have listened to me's. And I've seen that dynamic with a lot of businesses. I just don't see how that works.
Yeah, that offsite, that was my immediate follow-up, or would have been my question. How do you do that discussions? Because it shouldn't happen on site. You do it offsite. I have a similar thing with my dad, where we say we do strategy walks. So we just walk for 1, 2, 3 hours, and then we basically we are on the same page after that, or we've made our points and at least know how to go about it. So that's interesting. And that process, I mean, you started getting on the same page from day one, or was that something that you learned, and like when came the realization of?
It was definitely something that we learned. I'd say we started it probably about 2 years ago, but it should have been something that we should have been doing the entire time.
Yeah, we communicated really pretty well, and that moved us to extremely well. Okay, but just like any family member, we've had a couple of tenuous times, but we've never really had, any real arguments or fights. But we've always been very driven as far as like where we were going, as far as our direction and how we were going to get there. And we're both very driven people. We work. Even though I've built and sold a bunch of businesses and don't necessarily have to, been fortunate in that way. I still, 60 hours a week when I'm in town, and Cameron's probably closer to 70, 80, so we're both very driven people. So we've never had to pick the other one up or go, hey, why aren't you doing this or why are you doing that? It's, in fact, it's quite the opposite. Cameron will tell me to calm down a little bit. And I'm like, dude, you can't be getting up on Saturdays, and turning your computer on and working until 1 or 2 o'clock. I'm trying to talk him into going horseback riding or something, and he wants to work. Like he's crazy that way. So, yeah.
To your point, Cameron, you started that 2 years in. That was like when I entered my family business, I basically made that one precondition because I was, for me, seemingly quite young doing so, and I said, okay, there is such a different power dynamic. So I really asked that we had someone kind of between me and my dad to balance out that power dynamic at the very beginning, because that's kind of 30 years experience versus 0 years experience that has to there are some dynamics at play. You can't argue them away. And even with the best ego, I think I needed that assistance early on, and then it kind of fell into place that way. Okay, so maybe one last question to round it up, Cameron. Those 80-hour weeks in ops, what is your kind of key issue that you want to solve that smoothes everything, and where you say, okay, then we can onboard 100 a month and not a year?
That's what everyone asks me. I actually get asked that question all the time. If I knew, I'd be working on it right now, probably instead of doing this podcast. So I constantly work with mentors and consultants and try to look for ways to make the business more efficient. I really don't think there's going to be that one thing that if I fix it, it's going to be game changing for the business. Right now, I think it's all about a lot of small tweaks and improvements that gradually increases the business over time.
And keep in mind when you're the driving force, and Cameron's truly the driving force, and we're going to do 100 franchises in less than 4 years. It's just going to require you just going to require 70 hours a week, depending on what you're throwing.
Basically, you have that in place already. I mean, you have your structure, so it's not necessarily the big leaps anymore, but just tweaking that to
Absolutely.
kind of run smooth or smoother. Cool. Well, that was a great session. I mean, again, I was so excited coming into this conversation. I think I've learned a lot about this dynamics. I don't know who would not have a bolt-on franchise. Now listening to you, it seems the most obvious, and I'm wondering, like, why can't you have 2, 3 different? I mean, why is it only 2?
You probably should.
Yeah. There seem to be, kind of having that to counter or include adjacent markets and audiences just seems amazing. So thank you for coming on, and looking forward to meet both of you at one of the next trade shows.
All right.
So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great seeing you. I can't wait to see you. Got a big hug waiting on you when I see you at the trade shows. And drinks are on us for doing this. Thanks for having us on. That was so cool.
And we won another one of those high quality shirts.
Yeah.
Those things are indestructible.
Well, I'll come back to the next show then.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.